Is that us? Are we live, Johnny?
We are live, yes.
I'm getting mixed messages up the top of my
screen. I know we are live indeed, Joshua.
Right, okay, good. Right, well, good morning, folks. Welcome to the Rangers Reviews morning briefing on Wednesday, the 2nd of March. Nice to be back. Looking ahead to a huge game tonight in the Scottish Premiership. Joined by Johnny McFarlane. Johnny, we have a lot to get through today, don't we? A busy day in the world of Rangers. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good. Looking forward to having a chat and looking obviously forward to the big game tonight.
Yeah, well, we maybe won't start there. We'll start with the news this morning. Why don't we do that, Johnny, and then kind of work our way up to the the game tonight against St Johnstone, which I'll be at. First things first is Rangers look set to play a friendly against Celtic in Australia. Rumours kind of started circulating about this yesterday. Or the day before. When I first saw it, I kind of thought that sounds a bit ridiculous. But as we have on the Rangers Review site this morning, it seems to be the case. It's going to go ahead in, I believe, what's called the Sydney Cup. It's not going down very well, I think it's fair to say, Johnny, in the first one.
That's an understatement, that.
Yeah. I was, as I say, quite surprised to see it confirmed. What was your initial reaction to it? And as I say, what do you think about the reaction from the supporters to this news?
Well, I think the club have to take how the supporters are reacting very, very, very seriously indeed. You can't ignore the feelings of your customers. And of course, we know that the fans are more than customers. But ultimately, if you're a business, that's one of the most important things you can do. You have to listen to what people are saying and respond. And it's clear from the reaction, which I think, to be honest, would have been expected to some extent, that this is not a popular decision for a number of reasons. I'm surprised, I've got to be honest, that Rangers have decided to go through with this. I can understand from a business point of view why they might want to, if this was a very, very significant offer to get Rangers to go through with this, if it's millions of pounds and, the club needs to build up its business. But some things are more important than money. Some things you can't put a price on. And I think more than anything else, this is a fixture that's seen as extremely important in terms of world football, and by having a friendly between the two sides, it just feels very corporate and plastic and all these things that we're now associating with the EPL and La Liga and doing this kind of thing. And I think in Scotland we've always prided ourselves on a level of kind of realism and authenticity and getting down and dirty. That's what our game's all about. So to kind of join with this sort of corporate sensibility of having games in another country, it just doesn't feel right to me. I understand there'll be business reasons behind it. I understand the club are doing their best to generate cash, which is needed to build the team. But as Ian Ross has just said, I think very, very succinctly, you just can't put a price on certain things, and ultimately that's why you're seeing, I think, the reaction that you're seeing, Josh. I don't know what your take on it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the distinction between EPL teams is, sometimes largely because Scottish teams don't have the same market to operate in, and maybe it's less a case of we act with more integrity for our brand up here, and more a case of we don't have as many opportunities to go and market ourselves worldwide. Gary Commodities just put up his opinion on the Rangers Review, which I'd urge everyone to go and have a look at. I think he puts it very well. But yeah, as you say, social media isn't always a good barometer of moods, but I think today it's probably kind of captured that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, what the club say about it. And
I think the club need to make a statement about it, Josh. I think, that the situation was that it wasn't up for discussion at the press conference yesterday. And I think that was fair, because Giovanni van Bronckhorst and James Tavernier are not really in a position to be putting their heads on the chopping block on this one. That's not their decision. So I think that was correct. But there's now been quite a long period of silence. The news broke yesterday morning. It couldn't be confirmed. Then Celtic put out a statement not confirming Rangers' involvement. And I think 3:30, 3:37, something like that in the morning, this tweet came out from Australia with quotes from a politician, confirming how happy they were to have the game.
Yeah.
And still nothing from Rangers. So I do think it's something that needs to be addressed. You can't just be allowed to fester in the vacuum. The club need to explain themselves. I'm sure there'll be reasons behind this decision making. And at the very least, I think the fans deserve to hear what the club have to say. I think it's important to remember the club is run by fans themselves.
Yeah.
Who have done a lot to get Rangers back to where they are, and I think have everyone's respect for that. But at the same time, this is a decision that clearly a lot of people are unhappy with, and I think at the very least they owe the fans the courtesy of coming out and explaining themselves, agree with it or disagree with it. Well, here's the reasons why we went along and agreed to do it.
Mm-hmm. Right, let's look ahead to tonight. Johnny, Ross, I don't think he's not optimistic to say the least. Dreading this, haven't won away in the league since that game against Hearts, which does seem like a long time ago. Rangers travel to St Johnstone tonight in the Scottish Premiership, which can only be described as a must-win, not only for the points, given Rangers are 3 points behind in second place, but also because of the nature of the drop points on Sunday, which I think the best word to sum that up would be pretty inconceivable. St Johnstone are not a great team this season, Johnny, but you know what type of game I think it will be there in particular. I was at McDermott Park earlier in the season when it took James Tavernier's strike on and in the last 10 minutes to get the points. They're fighting for their lives down at the bottom of the table. Rangers are missing a number of key individuals, which we'll come on to, but it's going to be a really tricky game tonight for them, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be a very difficult one. Callum Davison, he's always shown to me whenever I've watched his sides that he can organise a destructive block. That's something he seems very capable of. St Johnstone's defensive record has not been bad at all this season. They've got a better defensive record than Motherwell, who are in 6th, and St Johnstone are languishing in 11th. I think that shows you that they can defend. The problem St Johnstone have is that they've got a more powder puff attack than anyone else in the league. They've got 18 goals in 28 games.
Yeah.
So I think Dundee, who are sitting bottom and have been ranked rotten all season, have got 23. So that shows you how St Johnstone struggle going forward. I think Rangers have got to respond to that by putting out an attacking team. I definitely want to see a front trio of Sakala, Kent and Morelos. Don't think this is one for Arfield tucking inside. Rangers really need to go after them because St Johnstone are not going to score many goals. We know that. We can see that from their league performances. It's a great opportunity for Rangers to go out and protect the zero, as it were. So I think that's something that I want to see, but it won't be easy. I don't know what the weather forecast is like. It's looking fairly mild here in Glasgow, but you think Perth, February, it's always going to be cold and a hard game. That pitch isn't the best, so it will be difficult, but it's very winnable, and Rangers should go after St Johnstone from the get-go.
Well, I'm north of Perth at the moment, and it is very mild, so hopefully it remains that way. And for me, I think the big thing tonight, Johnny, is that Sunday was a chance for Rangers to really re-control the top of the league. Not even if they were only going to be 1 point behind, but given Thursday night, given that Celtic dropped points, and we know how the narrative spin works in Scottish football, and it does have an impact on both sets of support. So let's not kid ourselves. If you win and your rival drop points, that's a big morale booster in terms of the rest of the season. For Rangers tonight to go out, I think, and finally turn the corner of consistency would be important. What I mean by that is put in a pretty convincing display, but equally, I think, in my opinion, we've been waiting for that. I think everyone that's involved with Rangers, covers Rangers, supports Rangers since the last draw at home against Motherwell, which was in September. And I don't know if it's complacency. I don't know if it's the lack of killer instinct. Van Bronckhorst said yesterday at his press conference, which I thought was interesting, that yes, they need to stop conceding as many goals, but also they need to be more clinical. On the underlying numbers, Rangers should have beat Ross County. They should have beat Motherwell. They should have beat Dundee United. And I think it's about not relying on anyone else, not relying on even referee decisions, even if they go against the team, but just making sure that Rangers take their chances. Because in the last few games, they've had more chances than their opponents. They've just not been clinical at either end, really, have they?
No, this is a point. Good point. Good point, lads. Listen, I've got a newborn. I'm away with it. I don't know what day it is. Never mind what month it is. I mean, I've made that perfectly clear.
That's fair. To be fair, I do not, so I don't have that excuse. But
Yes.
I just do not. Not quite. Yeah. Well, new month, Johnny. New optimism, new hope, and maybe a chance for Rangers to turn the corner of consistency. Let's talk before we talk about teams. I want to talk about the press conference yesterday, which Derek was at. The first thing that broke from it was the injury news, which was not a good update. No Ramsey, no Ahmad, no Davies, no Hollander, no Jack. We can go into detail of individual players, Johnny, but firstly, your reaction to that, because it doesn't look great, really, in terms of the squad, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look great at all. Phil Hollander's been such a big miss this season. You just can't overestimate how problematic that's been. He was supposed to be back in, I think, mid-December. When that injury first happened. Gerrard said mid-December. We're now in March, and Phil Hollander still really isn't properly got a run in the team. So it's been a real significant injury, and a player, I think, left-sided centre-half. Rangers just don't have another really, really good option there. Like Leon Balogun is obviously a really good player, but left side in terms of moving the ball quickly out of defence and things like that, I think Hollander really, really helps. Bassey obviously is better at left back. We know that. So yeah, it's problematic. I mean, we can talk about Aaron Ramsey. You talked about it quite a bit yesterday, Joshua. Perhaps you should give your opinion on that one, but I think it's looking increasingly difficult that Aaron Ramsey is going to make much of an impact, given that there's going to be 8 games left at the end of this week, and he's not going to play in any of the games this week, and then he'll need to be sort of bedded into the side slowly but surely. I think it's looking like it's probably not been one that's going to work out, but there's still time.
Yeah.
But I think many of us were hoping for better news on Aaron Ramsey than we got yesterday in the presser. I know Gio said he's very close, and we're hoping to see him soon, but it was quite unspecific, and that concerned me.
Yeah, and you can understand why clubs want to be vague. I don't think it's always to keep supporters in the dark. I think it's just to kind of protect the player against the time frame, maybe the pressure and exacerbating an injury. I've been thinking about it, Johnny, and I think it's within the backdrop of Rangers not improving their starting 11, and there's two sides to that. One side is Rangers have held on to a lot of key players, and if they make the Champions League at the start of this season or at the end of this season, it's vindication. It's worked. You can understand that. Had Rangers went out and sold a couple of key players last summer and then not beat Malmo, the narrative would be, well, what if we'd kept Kamara? What if we'd kept Kent? Maybe we'd have just got through those games. And you can understand that, in my opinion. But what that means is that when you go and, drop points recently, you look at that starting 11 and you think, not only were they tired, I thought, in the second half against Motherwell in the immediate sense, but also you have players like Arfield who've been excellent servants, but are still a core part of that team. When in 2019 you'd have hoped that in a couple of years perhaps it would have been the recruitment would have brought in players who would have a more substantial and prolonged impact on the first team. And you look at the key players that arrived in 2020, Roof, who I know we've discussed a few times. It's kind of unclear what's happened with him. Cedric Itten, who I think now is pretty clear to everyone that he's not going to make an impact and never has done. Yanis Hadji obviously suffered an injury and did contribute to the goals and assists and underlying numbers last year, had a bad season this year. So then you go and try and improve your starting 11 in a January window, and that's a hard thing to do. And, whether the loan deals were on the back of Rangers maybe trying to do more longer term deals that just didn't work because it's January, who knows? I think no one, even at this point, I think very few people would have not signed Aaron Ramsey because it's a world-class player. who clearly wants to be at the club because he could have gone and sat in the Premier League and played 10 games and played for Wales if he wanted to. It's the same with Ahmad, although, yes, it becomes hard to justify his arrival. It's exciting. It's what Rangers needed. It's a right winger. But
Yeah.
I agree with you that it doesn't look great at the moment.
Listen, I totally agree with you on that, Joshua. You know, we weren't sitting here on this briefing slaughtering the club for going out and getting Diallo and Ramsey. We thought those looked like great signings on paper. Yeah. You can't know how players are going to settle in at a club. You can't know what the injury situation is. You just got to look and say, on the balance of probabilities and based on the money that you spend, how will these guys do? Mm-hmm. So I find it hard to go in two-footed on Rangers as a club and Ross Wilson and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst over these signings, because it wasn't like anyone was jumping out from the rooftop saying, no, Aaron Ramsey's not a gamble worth taking.
Sure. I think the one thing is, and we don't know what Hearts were demanding, but the last few weeks I think have shown that it would have been good to have John Souttar in that defence. In my opinion, again, Hearts might have been asking for a ridiculous price. I'm sure it was much more complex than it looks on the outset. But given that Balogun can't play 2 games in a week, Helander, as you say, has been in this kind of grey area for a number of weeks. Lundstrom, who I thought did well taking the ball out of the back, but equally in his first game at centre back in a 2-man pairing, he's going to be exposed at one point, isn't he? I guess that's a risk you take of playing a player back there. So maybe that's the one where you look back and think, again, without having full understanding of the deal, was that a bad decision? Was that a decision that had Souttar come in? Is there just a couple of key moments? Because it is key moments. You look at that corner late against Ross County, the drop points against the corner against Dundee United. Would individuals have made a difference, just as individual mistakes have cost Rangers?
It's that smart again, though. I mean, it's that smart after the fact thing, because you looked at Rangers' squad at the time with Souttar and you thought, well, Balogun's on his way back. I remember when Balogun was out for the African Cup of Nations, there was surprise at that.
Yeah,
they thought it wasn't a serious injury, but he's kind of been. I mean, like Helander, it seems to have been much more complex than they initially thought. Mm-hmm. You thought Helander was coming back. You have Jack Simpson there. You've got Calvin Bassey, who was playing really well in that position. And you just probably thought, well, Connor Goldson's going to play every game. Yeah. And Souttar is a natural replacement for Goldson. He doesn't play on the left side.
Yeah.
I think I remember. And I know what you're saying. Like, in retrospect, yes.
Yeah.
It now looks like that it would have been but how would you possibly know that this would have been the scenario that would have come up? I mean, I don't think it was a lot of money. I think Hearts and Rangers were separated by about 200,000, but I just kind of felt Rangers made a fair offer and Hearts didn't want to play ball, and you can't be continually going above what you think is a fair offer. It's just not good business practice. So again, I think it's a difficult one.
Sure, and I remember saying at the time that I didn't think that there was a need for Souttar because Bassey was playing well there. As you say, with Goldson playing every game, it wouldn't have been a kind of immediate need. But I guess we didn't have the knowledge of what Helander's injury was going to be like, and as you say, Balogun's. But hindsight is a wonderful thing.
I think the question, Joshua, is around Jack Simpson. I mean, is he really that bad?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he's a left-sided centre-half who's played in the Championship and the Premier League. Now, he didn't cover himself in glory when he's played for Rangers in the past, but he's not been absolutely diabolical, you know, and he's not had a run to sort of settle. But clearly he's not fancied, because you're not putting Lundstrom there ahead of Jack Simpson if you think Jack Simpson's capable of doing the job. So it does beg the question why Jack Simpson wasn't shipped out in January. I suppose there might not have been interest, or not enough interest, or not concrete interest. But it's a bit odd that he seems to have dropped so far out of the picture.
Sure. I totally agree with you. Right, let's just talk teams then quickly tonight, Johnny. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The only, I guess, area of contention is in goals. Does Al McGregor start? Does John McLaughlin? Who would you put there?
Definitely McLaughlin. I've said that on the website, said it on the videos. I just think, given the mistakes McGregor has made, it's time for him to drop out. I don't think he will drop out, though. I think Gio will stick with him.
Okay, back four is going to likely be Tavernier, Goldson, Balogun, and Bassey.
Yeah.
Front midfield two of Kamara and Lundstrom, given Jack's out and Davies is out probably.
Yeah, that's what I would say, with Aribo in front.
Aribo in front, and then for me, there's no Mad. I don't think he'd have started anyway, but
yeah,
it has to be Sakala from the right, Kent from the left, and Morelos through the middle. I don't know what you thought, just quickly watching the game on Sunday. I thought in the last 10 minutes when Rangers took the threat of Sakala off the pitch and didn't have that, wide right threat to stretch the Motherwell defence, I thought they looked much worse. I didn't think they looked like scoring after that. So I think it's really important that he starts as well. I don't know if you're in agreement on that.
No, I'm full agreement. I think Fashion Sakala deserves a run in the team. The jury's out for me. I've said it before. I know that's not a popular sentiment. I think he's got a good goal return, really good goal return.
He does.
But he needs a run in the team. I find him very frustrating as a player because he can do great things one moment and then can't control the ball the next. But he deserves a chance to bed in, which he's not had.
And you need goal scorers in that team. Fashion Sakala has a really good goal return. And without Ruth, I think at points Rangers have missed that.
I think Josh has dropped off there. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up now. Thanks for watching today here at the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. You can catch up with us on the website where you can subscribe at the moment. An unbelievable deal, £1 for 2 months. If you like the videos, if you watch them every day, please go on there and support us. Helps pay for the videos, helps pay for all the content that we have on the website. Obviously, it's only £1 and that will cover you for the next 2 months. We will be back tomorrow with a reaction from the game. Josh is actually there in Perth tonight, so he will also be live from McDermott Park to give you an update on what's happening. Until next time, thanks for watching.